Well, it's very nice to be here. I've been asked to sing a verse and chorus of a little marching song of mine the boys adopted more or less during the war. I don't have to tell you I'm not much of a vocalist, but I'll do the best I can with it. So we'll just imagine for the moment we're back in 1917 and the orders from the front. Forward march, Doctor. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling, you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, don't delay, go today. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. And tell your sweetheart not to pine, to be proud her boys in line. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
About time. Hello, everyone out there in YouTube land. I am Matt Yancek. I am the founder and head game master of Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain, and welcome to episode 15 of the FiERCE BRooD, an RPG actual play of historic fiction. So in each and every episode, we like to blend actual locations, events, and historic figures from Boston of 1918 with a fictional story and fictional characters of our own creation. So those of you that are watching and listening at home might notice quite a few historic Easter eggs planted throughout our story. They're actually becoming increasingly rare now that we're getting deeper into the fictional part, but if you do, don't be afraid to speak up in the chat. It's all part of the fun. And so, as always, I would like to introduce you to my second favorite group of best friends. Starting over here, why don't we go with Steve? Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about your character?
Sure. I am portraying Ezekiel Z. Brewster, who was born into a Boston Brahmin family, and during his teen years was actually exiled from the family for some mysterious circumstances, and he found himself in foster homes, and then ended up in a seminary where he was studying to be a priest. And throughout the course of this adventure, he's discovering powers that he never knew he had, and coming to terms with what they mean.
Cool. That's right. And as we were kind of discussing before the program, you as a player have discovered some powers you didn't know you had because you hadn't leveled up in a few games, I guess. So we'll hopefully find out what those powers are. Let's keep going around. Let's talk to James now. James, can you tell us a little something about who you are playing?
I'm playing Vesper Evenwing, a composer turned con man, not from a Boston Brahmin family, rather down on his luck.
Yeah, wrong side of the tracks.
After losing his mentor and being just without a home throughout Boston and getting roped into this increasingly stranger and stranger world.
Excellent. Sorry, I was momentarily distracted because one of our players we have a secret chat going on over here, and one of our players just thumbs down our own the chat. So I'm not sure what that means exactly, but we'll see if we can turn that thumbs down upside down or around. I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to say that. But anyway, let's continue, and now let's talk to another good buddy, my second favorite person that lived next to me when I was growing up, Jared. Jared, can you tell us a little bit about your character, who you'll be playing
Sure.
tonight?
I am Thomas Brandon Dietrich, of a New York family, recently relocated to Boston. I'm a graceful explorer who learns quickly. He is a field scientist who has found himself sort of embroiled in this mess, and he's just hoping that he has enough abilities to keep up with the rest of the group that seem to have magical abilities.
Yes, but I'll say something here as kind of a meta aside. Those of you watching at home should know that Jared is our resident rules expert. There is not a rule in the book that he does not know, and he makes that known very often throughout the game. So I have a funny feeling that he has upgraded his character and is now playing at maximum potential. So he'll probably be able to.
But can he burst into flame? That's really the question.
Oh.
We could help.
Not on purpose.
We'll assist.
You could help. You could assist. Here's a match. Here's some gasoline. Let's do it. Okay, last up here, Frank, can you tell us a little bit about who you're playing for tonight's adventure?
I'm Frank. I wasn't told I was going last, so I've already forgotten what I was going to say.
That's right. Usually you go.
I'm
go
Frank
first.
Murphy. I'm an ex-copper, ex-night watchman at the rail yard here in Boston, South Boston, as a matter of fact. Middle-aged Irish guy, thick set, little thick in the head, street smart, but not really keen to making connections cerebrally. So I let my meaty fists and sidearm do the talking sometimes.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Frank. I'm sure that we'll hear some deep conversation from Murphy later on tonight. So now let's get back to our story. So in prior episodes of the Fierce Brood, our heroes found themselves drawn to the 1918 World Series to save a boy named Pascal and his protector, a representative of the New England Society for the Preservation of Antiquities named Leonard Cloudy, from the clutches of Harold Coatsworth III. Coatsworth, it seemed, was a member of a rival intradimensional organization called Watch and Ward. So after a prolonged battle, our heroes escaped to a strange, warped version of Boston called Tremontaine. Built on the leaf of an enormous vine in a world known as Vagaver, Tremontaine was filled with strange and exotic creatures. So there, in Tremontaine, our four heroes met Mark Twain. Yes, that Mark Twain, who revealed himself to be one of the leaders of the New England Society for the Preservation of Antiquities. Our heroes were sent back to Boston and placed in contact with Dr. Farley, a distinguished scholar with Harvard University, who would act as their contact advisor and quartermaster. So upon returning, however, the four discovered that a few days in Vagaver had turned into a few months on Earth. It was now mid-November, the Great War had come to an end, the pandemic had gotten worse, and the world had moved on. So tasked by the New England Society for the Preservation of Antiquities with locating and possibly eliminating Harold Coatsworth III, our heroes investigated Boston's Sunshine House, a home for wayward children, which they suspected was connected to Coatsworth and Watch and Ward. So there, a nurse they'd first encountered at the World Series, Madeline Stillwell, introduced them to Humbert Pantsman, leader of the Sunshine House and a dead ringer in appearance for Harold Coatsworth III. He claims to have seen Z and Murphy in a glorious vision. While searching the bowels of the building, however, the two uncovered a laboratory where it seemed clones of homeless children were being fabricated. Meanwhile, Vesper and Dietrich followed their own leads to the Purity Distilling Company on the north end of Boston and discovered a clue. Trucks from Boston Standard Shipping were bringing a mysterious cargo onto the grounds and then transporting it to Commonwealth Pier. Later, all four finally confronted Harold Coatsworth III in a battle on the lawn of the Boston Public Library. They managed to repel him once again, and then Vesper, using his ability to open doorways to Vagaver, confirmed a startling fact. Agents of Watch and Ward were working with the Germans. And then something unexpected happened. Madeline Stillwell came to them to ask for help. The five went into hiding, and our heroes investigated Boston's Commonwealth Pier, where strange shipments seemed to be moving back and forth between Boston and Europe. Chemicals and possibly even creatures were being transported from one place to another. But it might not be between Boston and Europe. More alarmingly, it might actually be between Boston and Vagaver. And so that is where we left our heroes when last we were with them. So at this point, I'm going to actually turn things over to my players and ask if there's anything they want to clarify, explain, correct perhaps in my summary, and just sort of get a foothold for a place for us to start tonight's adventure.
Where are we again? We got in the car after having escaped the dock. The creatures were still running. Someone else was following them, at least one of them. And then we posted the note to Murphy's friend, the cop, correct?
Yes. So that's essentially where we left things. So all of you had piled into the car. Okay. And then Murphy, what is this about the note? Can you explain what you did at the end there?
Well, I figured that we were leaving dockside and I had a date to meet up with my friend Sergeant Sullivan Byrne, and figured that I was going to miss that connection, and he's already been looking for me. So I, in a encephalopowder sped up state, slipped a note into his hand and get it out of there. And I believe the note said something like, "We'll meet up soon," or "Can't meet at our appointed time. We'll meet up again soon." And I signed it Murph.
It didn't say,
he'll know who that is.
"Dear Mr. Byrne,
to whom it may concern.
I love you. Do you love me? Check yes or no." And no, it's nothing like that.
See him in home.
No. Okay.
Not
just
encrypted
checking.
or anything.
Not. That's right. Standard 1918 encryption methods.
Here's my Octocom code. Contact me.
That's right.
I feel it's important to note that Vesper's feline accomplice ingested two of those creatures.
Yeah,
Correct.
Actually, what happened with that? Can you tell us about that, Vesper?
Yes. So in the hidden closet of the object that Mars is bound to, we were able to ingest two of these strange little creatures, which manifested itself as if Mars's head poked out and expanded and just consumed them. So we have them just sitting and holding, waiting for whatever we might do.
And of course, Mars is your
my little magical ally.
Right. Exactly. Is that how it's actually called? It's not called like a companion or a
interestingly, yes, it is the focus that I keep a magic ally. And now at this tier of tier 4, Mars is a level 4 creature.
Cool. And just to remind our players and fill in those of you at home, when the four heroes were exploring the dock in our last game, they discovered crate upon crate filled with, well, actually, I can't really say that. They discovered many crates, one crate of which was burst open by Murphy, and out of which 3 large kind of humanoid creatures with these kind of beaks burst out. And then Vesper was able to coax 2 of the creatures into, well, was it Mars that kind of hypnotized them and got them to go? Did you hypnotize them? I forget. It's okay if you don't remember.
What's the difference?
I think we
We
just
can just
kind of
make
fed
it
him
up.
on in there.
Vesper sweet talked one, and then I carried the other one out of the corner of the box.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this kind of leads us to maybe actually to Z. Z, what was it when you actually were the only member of our team of heroes that was able to walk onto the deck of the Woad Ether?
That's correct. So I was following the apparition that's been haunting me for many
Yes.
years, and you know, a Puritan. And though he wouldn't speak to me, I felt like my whole life that he was some kind of apparition that was evil or harmful.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually was very stoic, and he pointed beneath the cargo hold of the ship, into the cargo hold of the ship, and that's when I saw not only just one box but an entire storage of the ship full of these boxes filled with these creatures.
Yeah. So looking down into the cargo hold, you just saw head after head after head of these creatures that were all contained in this cargo hold beneath. And so at that point, you all kind of beat feet and got out of there by freezing time. So earlier on, I believe Murphy had mentioned the encephalopowder, which is a mind-altering substance that allows all kinds of things to be possible, and one of which is slowing down and stopping time. And they stopped time, made their way to their vehicle, and then started time back up again when they were safe. And then at this point, I believe everyone now is in the car, and I think you were headed back to the temporary safe house. And so from what I recall, and I don't want to tell you all what to do, I thought you were going to meet up with Dr. Farley or try to convene and talk to Haley, Mr. Haley, about how to proceed with all of this. Those are two things on your agenda, but I wanted to sort of remind you that also back at the safe house, you do have the nurse Madeline with one of her skin dogs that is sort of safely stored in this temporary safe house until you can be taken to this better safe house, which is the one that Dr. Farley has sort of promised you. So what would you guys like to do at this point?
Yeah, I forgot about these creatures, guys. What are we going to do about these creatures?
Well, if they're being or so important to be brought in or brought into here, we need to find what their use is for.
Well, let's
But
try
the
and talk
barrels
to them.
go
Right?
out and the crates come in.
Weren't these crates headed to that distillery?
Yes, just to let you know, if no one can remember, they were basically going back and forth between the two. Now, the question is, were the crates being loaded and then put onto the ship, or were they being brought off the
I had
ship
learned
and then...
from, I think, my deception on the law enforcement agents that they've observed that the barrels go out,
Yep,
the crates
boxes
come in.
Right.
Nice reminder.
Was Farley, was he like setting up that safe house with the FiERCE BRooD, I think
with
it was?
the actual FiERCE BRooD at this point.
We might need to collect the nurse and try and get to that other place. They might be able to identify these beasts.
Okay. Do we know if the Octocoms have a universal translator? Can we try and talk to these things?
You do not know that. You could always give it a try.
And you are pretty good at that.
Giving things a try
Me?
or translating?
It's an automatic
Good at-
success, isn't it,
He's
TV?
got automatic success, and he's like good at doing stuff.
I
And he's
like-
specialized in it.
Right. He's specialized at automatic successes, which means that he eases the task of an automatic success by 2 levels, which actually means that I'm indebted to him. I have to like come over to his home and like make him dinner and like do these other things, or roll his dice and actually put it onto a 20 every time.
Thanks, Monty Cook.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, Monty, do you like to just screw with GMs or?
If the game can be broken,
just
Jared
me?
will break it.
Yeah.
If we're sitting in the bottom of the car trying to move it around, I guess we can try and.
So to set the scene,
and
the car is threading its way through 1918 Boston, heading back to the safe house. It is, I want to say it's around midday to maybe a little bit, maybe early afternoon at this point. The car is on autopilot, and up above, it looks like, just looks like a typical day in Boston at this point. And so the 4 of you are below deck, basically alone, and you're able to. I'm not sure how this would work. Does Mars have to open up her mouth and let them out?
No, that was kind of just a stylized thing. I
Okay.
think I'll treat it more like a bag of holding or something, but like
we can do it whatever way you want.
I don't think these will make much of a mess, but Murph, I'll need your strength to hold this thing still gently. We don't know anything about it. And I'm going to open up the watch kind of in a shadowed part of my jacket.
Yeah.
And then kind of reach in and try and extract one.
So then you're not actually going to. So Mars doesn't have to appear or anything like that. You're just going to reach into the.
Right. This is more of a function of the object.
So looking down into, as you pop the case of the stopwatch, you can kind of see the little mechanisms clicking away, and all the little delicate pieces that are kind of in balance that are just rhythmically sort of clicking and whirring. And for a moment, what you watch as with all these little dials and arms and things like that, as they spin, click, whir, and gradually kind of disappear, revealing the hole into the storage place inside the watch. And you see 2 of these creatures which look up at you, and they look rather, well, to be honest, they look rather frightened and meek sitting down there. And they tentatively reach up, one of them, and taps with a finger at what it thinks is going to be maybe a glass container, but actually its finger comes through, rises up, and it kind of whirls around a bit. Does it just sort of walk out?
It certainly can if it wishes.
So the first finger sort of becomes a second finger, and then it latches over the side. And when it does latch over the side with 3 fingers, you can kind of feel the cool clamminess of its finger. And there's maybe even a little bit of moisture with it. And then it begins to pull itself out. And somehow, and it's bizarre to watch, the creature somehow, through some trick of the light or perhaps some interdimensional trick of Vesper's watch, manages to just climb out as if this tiny little watch, maybe an inch or 2 in diameter, were big enough to allow the thing to come out in full. And when it gets out, it looks from one to the other of you, nervously, chirps a few times, makes some kind of clicking noises, and then backs itself into a corner as if it were nervous to be here.
It got all the way out?
Yes, I allowed it.
Okay.
I mean, unless you guys wanted to stop it, we can.
Okay, no, that's fine. Did the Octocom activate on its chirping and change anything at all?
Why don't we say this? It didn't seem to activate for anyone but you, Dietrich. So why don't you give me a roll on this and tell me why it would be that you would understand this language?
Okay. Number one here. I'm trained in English, German, and French. So I have enough history with different languages that maybe you can pick some things out. So it's not like it's just a one language person.
Right. I like that.
And
We'll count the Octocom as an asset.
Count the Octocom as an asset. All right, perfect. Then I will go ahead and use 2 levels of intellect effort.
Go right ahead.
You boy. That's only a 9.
But that is good enough. What you get are very simple phrases. You get scared. Where? Don't know. Friends. Enemy. Hungry. Very simple words. This creature is a very, very simple-minded creature, or it's either that, or perhaps it communicates on some completely foreign level that you would not be able to sort of comprehend, if that makes any sense. I know it seems weird, but it may be so completely confusingly speaking that you don't understand it, or you can only understand it in simple terms.
Okay. So then I'm going to say Vesper or Z. This thing he's definitely scared of us. He doesn't know what to expect of us, but he's also hungry. So here, why don't you try this? And I'll try and find some fruit or something from the kitchen, give it to him. And
Murphy, make a roll to see if you've eaten it all.
That's right. And pay it forward. So that when I suggest an action
in there still.
Go ahead, Jared.
When I suggest an action, that's not an attack. That task is eased for a minute by whoever I'm suggesting it to. So,
oh, cool.
Vesper, why don't you try and help talk to him, Vesper?
Very well.
See if you could use food.
So you're able to root through, and you find a lot of fruit, which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of like sugary powder all over the place, as if there had been sweets and snacks that were somehow eaten. There's a lot of like syrupy kind of things like that. But all of the healthy stuff, for some strange reason, hasn't been touched. In fact, it looks pristine. It's like shining, as if it were the first time it were seeing light of day. And then looking over at Murphy, you can see a little powdery ring around his lips that he like wipes away. But yes, you hand some fruit over to this creature, and it very tentatively reaches over. And you're the one doing this, is that correct, Dietrich?
I was going to give it to Vesper so that he can do it.
Vesper.
It's his turn, right?
So it leans in and takes it from you, Vesper, and starts kind of munching on it.
I sit down cross-legged in front of it, and as I do, Mars just hops up and sits in my lap. And so
it
I'll
moves
give her some
closer to you and taking anything that you offer it now and eating it, and now it's looking from one of you to the other.
Let's see, huh?
It's clear that it's not going to need immediate restraining, at least to me. So I'm just going to ease back towards the stairwell. In case this goes south and it tries to bolt. I saw what it did at the dock. It knocked me to the ground. Having this thing burst out of a moving vehicle would probably be detrimental to our secrecy and whoever's around it. So I'm just going to watch the stairs, stand in front of the stairs.
Are you saying this out loud?
No.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
Subtly...
That was his inner dialogue.
Yeah. I'm letting you know
that long.
what I'm doing and why.
You know what we need to do? We need to come up with like a Shakespearean form of soliloquy for role playing. And what we do is all of our squares darken, And then Frank's kind of gets bathed in like a spotlight, and he steps forward and he addresses everyone that's watching right now. And he says something about like, should I do this or should I do
My
that?
chest still hurts from when it stepped on me.
That's right.
I eat an entire bag of donuts.
It could be that. It could be that. That hurts.
I'm gonna write that down. This is definitely a future sort of thing I want to build into the game. But anyway,
So I want to like kind of test the communication impartation that this thing is capable of, and so try and start something simple like, do you think you are on, or you think you are in the place where you are from right now?
you get an image of an orchard, but it's an orchard and you can kind of see you get the word orchard.
And to see if it's part of a clan, a family of some kind, kind of differentiate it from maybe just wandering strange creatures.
It looks hesitantly from Dietrich to you as if, well, you're on the same network, so maybe I can communicate with you too. And then you get friends, brothers, sisters, but it's not when I say brothers, sisters, it's a single word that represent, you get the word sibling, missing.
And was he taken from his home?
Orchard again is what you get.
Did
Fruit.
you just leave? Were you taken?
You get actually darkness, run, frightened, underground, bad people.
And these are words that are coming in, not
just
imagery
words.
or
You
anything?
see, you hear basically words between, but it's nothing you can really understand. It's a very simplified version that the Octocom is most likely translating for you.
I'll simply just say watch and word.
There's no response with that.
I thought though.
Ask if he knows Coatsworth.
There's no response with that.
All right. Has all of your kind been disappearing?
Many gone. Many missing. Sad.
Do they return?
Gone. Forever. Different. Change. Good. Change. Bad.
About the passage of time, the turning of seasons. How long has it been?
What are you asking now? I'm asking you as a game
how long
master.
it's been since it left or been captured.
Hours.
Okay. I'll relay that to the group that, obviously been captured. It's a rather fast operation. It's not, someone's not like hanging on to a bunch of things. They're really pushing these captives through.
It's starting to kind of quietly explore the cabin, the lower deck now, and it's kind of looking up at, because you kind of have this, what do you have, maybe a stairwell, Steve, like a spiral staircase or a regular stairwell or something that goes
Yeah,
up.
sure. Yeah.
And it's looking at the light kind of flickering as you move through the city, and it's kind of curious about that.
I have a hunch that these creatures are manipulated and turned into skin dogs.
And we have someone now from the Sunshine House where we feel like those skin dogs
Or
are in
manufactured.
production, right? I wonder if Madeline, we've gotten to know each other. Sorry.
What's been
if she
going on
might-
between games, Frank?
You might recognize this particular creature. She's certainly comfortable around the skin dogs.
Yeah. How far are we from the safe house where Maddie is?
You can just, I mean, we can just fast forward to it. You're probably 15, 20 minutes. We can make this ride. I'm just sort of proceeding from the assumption that you want to do this in private here in the lower deck before you get back, but we can easily just I can snap my fingers and we'll go.
I think we're ready. I think we're ready to be there.
So eventually you do come to this temporary safe house, and the car moves its way through and around to the back alley of a particular building, which is in a shadow, and one of you pops out, opens a large garage door, and then drives the car in, and then it closes behind you. And what you find is Madeline, who has been attempting to use the crappy kitchen that you guys maybe have in this safe house. And
before you go on, Matt, I just want to make sure that I went out of the car first and kind of warned Madeline that we're bringing a creature in, and I don't know how the skin dog is going to react, so maybe we can put that away in another room or something, and I don't want those two interacting yet.
She stops, and actually one thing that you notice is that whatever food she was trying to make, she has completely burned it. Whatever
is it still edible, though? I mean, burned or otherwise? It's
still Cajun now, Frank. Cajun.
That's all. That's right. The sugar, the powdered sugar on top of it. So it's a complete mess. She stops for a moment, and she says, wait, what are you talking about? What have you brought back? And she looks very nervous when you say this.
I'll try and explain it quickly.
I'm not sure what you've brought back, but I hope... Well, all right then. And the skin dog, which is actually sleeping beneath the countertop, well, maybe the fiberboard, like the wooden countertop that you have there for your, which serves as a kitchen. She leans over, she collars it, or leashes it, I should say, and then takes it to a smaller room, which is effectively maybe where all the bunks are. And she closes the door, and then she comes back, and the room is kind of filled now with the smell of this burned food. And you look over, and there's a table which she has placed some rather dirty-looking dishes on. Maybe she's done the best that she can with what she has there, what was available to her. And she's placed this burning, crisp food, which looks variously like it could be corn on the cob, it could be steak, it might be some form of pudding, but it's definitely in the vegetable family somewhere. You're not really sure, but it's pretty messy. And she sort of slaps her hands like the true chef that she is not, and then steps over. Now, what is it that you've brought here? And I suppose...
Yeah, I mean, if they don't want to come in at that time, that's fine too.
And we're going to help this thing get up that staircase, because I don't know how easily it's going to roll up there. It's a sizable critter, right?
Well, when you guys start moving towards the staircase, and it's been kind of looking at it, it just sort of hops along on its own, and it's able to. And just to sort of clarify here, it's a rather, like you're saying, it's a rather sizable creature. It's larger than you guys are, but it's thinner, and it's humanoid, and it's got kind of, it's rather featureless in a way. It looks almost like a waxy sort of, a waxy sculpture. And it climbs out, and it looks outside of the vehicle, and then simply climbs out through one of the windows, not knowing how to operate the door, and then starts looking around. And Madeline is watching this thing, and she raises her hands. Why did you bring this thing back?
Do you recognize this thing? Have you seen it before?
Sure, I recognize this thing. And she informs you that it's a creature called an Exy. EXXY. And essentially, an Exy is like a parasitic creature. It eats souls and ingests them. And after eating a soul, the soul, actually, there's a kind of mechanism built inside of the Exy that begins to grow the soul and regrow it within the creature. And gradually, the soul overtakes the Exy personality and becomes whatever it was in its prior life. And she explains that essentially, very quickly, essentially what happens is that these Exy were once wild on Vagaver. And essentially, there were trees on Vagaver that would collect the souls of the dead, and then the soul would be funneled into kind of like a seed pod. And an Exy would swallow a seed pod, and then that would transfer the soul into the Exy. And she's stunned as to why or how you would have brought and where you would have found an Exy here on Earth.
They're being brought here at the docks from a ship from Vagaver.
She shakes her head. I don't know why they would be brought here except to be used in some ill manner for some terrible purpose.
Could they be made into soldiers?
They could be. They could be made into whatever shape they ingest, whatever the shape of the soul that they ingest. They were once a natural creature in Vagaver. And now, however, I'm not really sure why they would be here, but...
So there weren't any of these Exys at the Sunshine House when you were there?
No, and she looks like she might be covering something up, and then she finally reveals that she tells you a story about hearing the word Exy in relation to another world, that world being Vagaver. And it was something that Pantsman had talked about a few times, only in whispers, with kind of like a group of the elite at the Sunshine House. And she never really put things together, except slowly in pieces over the years that she's worked there. And she thought that they were a fanciful thing, a fanciful creature, until one day, when she entered Mr. Pantsman's private laboratory or workshop by accident.
Is it in the fridge?
She nods. And says that she's not a believer in the afterlife, and she's not a believer necessarily even in the supernatural. But there's some science to this, something going on with these creatures. And I don't know what that is.
You know how long the soul regeneration process takes? Do you have any idea?
After I found, or after I happened upon this laboratory, I did a little bit of snooping. If you recall, I told you about the records that they have there. I thought they were fictions. I thought they were just the rantings of crazy people. But I discovered, apparently, once the soul has bonded, they're inseparable until death, at which point the soul leaves the Exy body and the Exy dies.
That pet you have, that skin dog, might that be an Exy?
I suppose it might be, but I don't know. I don't think so. I don't really know. I couldn't tell you where
That's
these
what we
creatures
saw.
come from.
That's what we saw in the lab. It looked like they were fusing the children, turning them into skin dogs.
It could be that they're mixing them somehow. It could be, I don't know, perhaps these soldiers that you were talking of.
So what do you guys all think? And I'm sitting at the table and I'm tucking in and I'm going to try some of the food as I'm asking this question. Are these things evil? Do we need to remove them?
If you say this out loud, she just shakes
Yeah,
her head.
I do.
They're only as evil as the souls that inhabit them.
No.
And if they're not gestated, as it were, we're not necessarily in danger immediately.
No, they are a simple creature. They actually, from what I understand, if the notes that I've read are true and the strange things that I've seen at the Sunshine House are real, they are simple, harmless creatures.
They're from a particular part of Vagaver.
I cannot recall. It was silly notes, scribblings on paper. To be honest, I never quite paid. I until I realized that these things were real, I didn't pay enough attention. I don't know.
Well, this is good information to start with, but we'll certainly need to get with Farley and the Fierce Bird when this safe house is prepared.
Well, I want to communicate with Farley if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. The moment you, unless there's something else you want to do in private, the moment you call for him, as he said before, he was going to listen in. He is there.
I'm going to fill him in on these Exys and where we found them.
He's stunned, frightened, and shocked by this development, and he goes on to say that this goes much further and much deeper than he ever imagined. And he wants to ask you and clarify. You saw these things coming and going on ships at the pier.
A whole cargo hold full of them. An army, you might say.
He's very, very concerned about this.
Who uses these things?
I don't know, but there are many dark forces that might use this type of creature. There are so many sides in Vagaver, and there are so many sides to this intradimensional war. I don't know, but I think it's important that we find out and perhaps even stop it. I don't know, though. I think it may be time for me to talk to Mr. Haley. To my father. He kind of leaves it there, and there's an uncomfortable silence. Almost as uncomfortable as this moment right now.
I want to
Everyone
ask
stares at
Madeline
each
I'm
other.
just looking intently at Zed,
what
waiting
this is
for
I'm
what's
eating.
next.
I'm not involved in the cup. What is this I'm eating? It's not terrible.
I think it's a good idea that you talk to him. Yeah. We might continue on doing other things though while you have this conversation. Are you planning to go there or just talk to him?
There are ways. It's dangerous for me to talk to him, but there are ways that I could do that. But in the meantime, perhaps it's time for you to go into real hiding with the FiERCE BRooD. I have arranged a place for you where I think you'll be safer, particularly hearing the circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment. But it's up to you. What is this plan that you wish to do next?
Well, we need to continue to find more information, right?
Well, I think we need to find more information, but I think we need to act. And
Well, that's it.
Langdon, with all due respect, if you go to Vagaver, we've seen how time works there. We'd be stuck here for months by the time you even come back with any information. And if these Xy's are being used to create an army, and Vesper saw Coatsworth talking to the Germans, I don't know. How can we stop time long enough to get the information we need from Vagaver without being overrun with a greater war than the one that just ended? Humans, us, we're not equipped to deal with this. What menace has been brought here from this other world? It's like the gates of hell have been opened.
I don't know, but perhaps part of your purpose here is to do something about it. We're set up, but we're really not much more than scouts, to be honest. We watch what goes on, and we report back to Vagaver about it.
In all due respect, Langdon, you've missed an awful lot on this watch.
May I get back to you within an hour?
Sure.
I will see what I can do. And so with that, he clicks off unless one of you shouts out, "Wait, don't hang up just yet." What would you like to do at this point? Then you have an hour before he's going to contact you back.
60 minutes, boys.
Well, we'll need to try and get the Xe back in the box, and I don't know. I kind of want to lay it all, just talk it through. There's an actual underground. These things are going to the distillery, to places all across the country.
Yep.
If we need to be proactive about this, how can we disrupt something on such a large scale?
And what souls are they intend to ingest? From what I understand from what Madeline said, they're kind of innocuous without ingesting a soul. I think the kids at the Sunshine House were one vessel.
And what part does the distillery play?
I don't know yet. We haven't been in there.
So do we go to the distillery or do we go to the Sunshine House?
What's likely to yield better information?
Farley getting back to us with any of the information.
We can wait for an hour.
Is that Madeline speaking?
Oh, no, that's me as game master reminding you that he will contact you as far as you know.
I think that it's been a morning and Murphy has just eaten a huge plate of food. He needs to rest.
I think I ate someone else's too. I'm sorry.
Oops.
It's a little burnt, but it's all right.
Don't worry, all
I'll
the fruit's
stick
left.
with the fruit.
The distillery might give us more information about their overall plans, but the side benefit of Sunshine House is we do get to save those kids. So
I asked Madeline, how did you tame that skin dog? Why doesn't it attack you? These things seem rabid to everyone else.
especially when you're in the shower.
Especially when you're in the shower.
It's too bad. I need to create like the little comic book asterisks. Like when a player says something, I need to be able to hit a button and a little asterisk comes up that says 7 issues ago.
Yeah, see episode 7.
Yeah.
Dietrich was attacked in the shower by one of these creatures.
Never letting that down.
So she informs you that essentially when she started learning that these bizarre things were happening, she started to befriend some of the children. And she also started to sort of learn about these creatures that seemed kind of whatever the heck they were. She was able to befriend 1 or 2 of them, and that they would be introduced to her as guard creatures. And she thought at first that they might be dogs that she just had never encountered before, a breed that was odd or strange or something. But over time, she started to sort of question this, and that this creature that she happens to be with right here was one of the dogs that was originally, one of the skin dogs that was originally used to guard the premises. And so she had befriended it. So in a way, even though it was still doing the duty of as a guard dog, she would slip it like food every so often. She would slip it snacks and things like that, things from the kitchen during her off-duty hours when she would see it patrolling the grounds or watching. So essentially, what she's telling you is that there are a few of them that guard the premises later at night. And this is one of the ones that she had befriended. And for some reason, unbeknownst maybe to her, she was able to connect with it and perhaps even make friends with it. And now that it's separated from its darker, maybe angrier half, it's more malleable and more open to her suggestions. Because if you do recall, this is one of the creatures that attacked her.
When?
Oh, wait, no, it's not. Never mind. Forget I said that. It was the one that she was using as a friend. That's right.
Yeah, this is her friendly one.
Yeah,
not one of the evil ones.
Yeah. That was sometimes I add a little bit of elaboration on it, and I'm like, oh, I just screwed myself over because I ad-libbed. Why didn't I just stick with a script?
Stick with a script, Matt.
Yeah. Let's get back to railroading you guys.
Yeah.
So we're sacking out for an hour, boys?
Yep.
Make your recovery rolls.
I was going to say, so you have a couple of recovery rolls, so you can go ahead and make that action, and then oh my God, I can't believe I forgot. There's what? A 10-minute one, a 1-hour one, and then
And a 10-hour.
What are they?
1d6.
10-hour.
1d6 plus 2?
plus your level.
Oh, plus 4.
Whatever level
wow.
you are. Yeah.
Boom.
Plus your tier.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So we get 3 rolls?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 rolls. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm back up to full power on everything. So that's good.
Okay, so unless there's something else that happens during the hour that you're waiting this out, and there isn't, You're contacted once again by Langdon Clemens, a.k.a. Dr. Farley. He tells you are now... He tells you that you should speak with representatives of the FiERCE BRooD, who will now give you instructions on how to proceed. And that among the FiERCE BRooD, there is one man, and he says the word man, who you can talk to, who represents my father in matters here on Earth in special circumstances. His name is Jim. And you will find him, Jim.
Don't we know a Jim, guys?
Do know a Jim, and I say that. Is that the same Jim we already met?
Langdon stops for a moment. I don't believe so. Who are you referring to?
We explained to him the guy that watched us have that attack with Pantsman and gave us the sailboat, steamboat business card.
I thought we already talked.
We already talked to him about this.
Yeah.
He stops for a moment. You talked to Jim already.
Yep.
Well then, you may have a stronger connection than my father discussed with me. And he gives you an address where you can enter the underground to meet the FiERCE BRooD. And it's actually close to the north end.
All right. I say we go with no delay.
I agree. What should we do about the X's? Do we bring them with us? I'll ask Farley.
You should probably keep them protected. It is really up to you. But if these Exi are uncorrupted, then they are innocent creatures with nothing to do with our squabbles. I definitely do not recommend releasing them into the wild here on Earth.
And the FiERCE BRooD help take care of them?
They will most likely be able to help with that, yes.
We'll coax it back into the hidden closet and be able to take it along.
That's easy enough to do, and after a few minutes, you do manage to get it back into...
What about the one that got away on the docks?
All the ones stuck in the boat, right? Same
We
issue.
can handle everything.
That's it.
So you guys are ready? You just want to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So
We'll bring Madeline, the dog, the whole thing.
All right. So you load up
Leftovers from Earth.
Your car. Load up the fruit just to make sure that you all have enough to eat after Murphy destroys the sweet section. Bring the burn food along. And you make your way through the streets to the address that Langdon Clemens, a.k.a. Dr. Farley, gave you. And eventually you come to a tenement building on the outer edges of the north end. And you've re-entered, I want to remind everyone that you've re-entered what is essentially like the Italian section of Boston. And if we rewind the clocks 1 or 2 decades, It was originally a Jewish and Irish section of Boston that just over the years shifted in demographic to Italian. And as you return, you kind of see some of the sites that you remember, and this is now for Dietrich and for Vesper specifically, some of the sites you remember, because this is actually the location not too far. It's in the neighborhood, maybe, a little bit off on the neighborhood. It's near the Purity Distilling Company. And entering the neighborhood, the thing that looms, no matter what street you turn down, is that massive tank. And it looks to be 3 or 4 stories in height. And no matter where you go, you turn around a corner here, you go down a street there, that tank is just looming there. And you're reminded of the fact that you had gotten kind of close to it before. You're reminded of the strike that was going on there, and the 2 Italians that you talked to originally and couldn't get very much out of. You're also reminded of the fact that you were almost at the center of some sort of almost a riot or a battle between striking workers and scab workers that had replaced them. So hopefully that kind of paints a picture of your last time here. You're also reminded of the fact that the gate was, outside the gate were kind of lined up several trucks because they had to close the gate at a certain point because they were worried about the striking workers kind of coming in and just like going nuts or doing something destructive. And the fact that these trucks, some of which seem to be from Boston Standard Shipping, which translated as a Vagavurian shipping company. Okay? So getting closer, however, you don't get that deep into the north end, but you do come to this tenement building. And there are a lot of Italian children that are outside playing, goofing around. They're playing stickball, playing hide and go seek. And surprisingly, among them is Pascal. And Pascal is gathering wood in the streets. And it looks like he's just picking up like old pieces of crate or pieces of like wagons that have broken off or just logs and things like that that happen to have been sort of general detritus that's found in the street. And he comes running over to you, and you have to tell me now, are you just going to walk up and into this tenement building? You've been instructed that the entrance is in the basement of this building, which now, looking at it, looks like people do live there, but it doesn't really look like a very respectable building. How are you going to proceed? Pascal's running up to you.
Yeah, let's greet Pascal nice and warmly. It's been a long time. Glad you're here. And so we're, here to see Jim. Can you help us get to Jim?
He stops. Jim? Do me a favor. How do we do this? His eyes light up when you say Jim. What Jim are you talking about?
I don't remember what he looks like, but I'll describe him.
Oh, he looks disappointed for a moment. And he says, "Oh no, that's not the Jim that I was thinking of. I thought you meant my friend." And he points over across the street to a little boy that's just like hit a ball with a stick and just knocked it out down the street, and there a bunch of kids start cheering about him, and he's sort of like running around bases. I thought you meant my friend Jim. I didn't know. And just to remind you, Jim was a rather like well put together man, like very sharp and crisp sort of appearance. He was wearing a suit and a very nice hat, wonderfully groomed. He was a black man, probably somewhere in his late 30s to early 40s. And when you originally found him, he was reading a newspaper and just sort of watching what was going on. So that's the description that you would have given to the child, Pascal, who has no idea now who you're talking about. No, sorry, but are you here to? Didn't you come to visit me? You're not looking for Jim either? No. What are you guys here for?
We're here to meet the BRooD.
He stops. Oh.
Haley sent us.
Oh. Okay. He looks very secretive then. And he looks out at the other kids and he starts yelling for Jim, and Jim comes running over, and then Jim looks kind of like that, like he comes over like he's just filled with a lot of like energy, and he's kind of huffing and puffing, and Pascal explains to Jim that you're here to see, and he whispers it, the BRooD. And then Jim suddenly looks very serious about this. Oh. And he runs over and he grabs a few other children, and pretty soon he comes back with about half a dozen other little boys and little girls who all start to sort of gather around you. And they're all kind of like poking each other and sort of laughing and joking. And they start running up to the doorway of the tenement building, and then one of them throws the door open. And then Pascal turns, walks over to the door, and looks at you guys. Aren't you going to follow? You're here to see the BRooD, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Following.
So following along, you enter.
Does this
I was
seem
waiting for this.
strange? I want to see through tricks such as lies, deception, and illusions.
Okay, I like this.
Because I mean, we've always had good interactions with Pascal, but he's grabbing his buddy. They're just like, "Oh, this is cool. Come on, guys."
Jim's a kid. Makes perfect sense.
I guess
it all
I'm gonna
makes perfect
expend
sense until
some effort, and I am specialized in this skill, so that should be 3.
Yep. So specialized gets you the task eased by 2, and then the effort gets you 1 more. So tell me exactly what you're looking for here. How are you taking a look at this gaggle of children that are kind of weaving and bobbing all around you? They're kind of joking, and they playfully run right in front of you.
Kind of if they're kind of, while they're being happy and joyful, if they're kind of giving each other looks like, "Oh, this is going to be good," kind of conspiratorial, while they think they're behind Z's back doing one thing, but I see them doing another.
Right.
And like their general air, like Pascal might just be like a little eager, like, "Come on, guys. Yeah, this is a great door to go through right now."
So you're using 3 levels, easing the task by 3 levels. And just to let people know who are watching at home, I didn't do this for the first roll, but essentially Cypher uses 10 levels to determine task difficulty. So depending on what task stat you use, that could be might, speed, or intellect, a task is rated on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as the difficulty goes. And that is what I'm determining in my head. And then with the player, we kind of negotiate how to ease the task or hinder the task. And then the player has to roll against that number in order to find a success. So James has eased the task for Vesper by 3 levels. So if you want to give us your roll, I have an idea of what a target number would be in
4.
my head. A 4?
That's a
I
problem.
just should never roll ever.
These are overly
Expensive
enthusiastic.
experience.
These are
I got
overly.
XP. I'm doing it.
You're
Just
spending
I'm-
XP.
I'm
So
starting.
when a player spends XP, they can re-roll. Go right ahead.
Just frustrated. 18.
There you
Nice.
go.
A little
Well,
better.
There you
Sorry,
go.
16.
That's a little
Oh,
better.
16? Oh, okay,
16,
that
but
sucks.
yeah.
That blows.
Oh,
I was going to
it's a
say
little dark.
18 I would have solved the game at this moment for you. 16, that's insta kill on every one of you. I'm just kidding.
Oh, phew.
Looking
I was
around,
just tearing my character sheet up.
these are not human children. Just looking at them, you can tell that Pascal is hanging out with creatures of Vagaver.
I immediately say, "Look, children!" And Mars appears at my feet, and I bend down like this, and I hit TBD on the shoulder as I get down, and I just give him the old.
The moment you say that, a few of them stop in their tracks. They see the cat forming, and they run over to the cat. And they just surround.
Mars is just going to be the playful, like in between the ankles and the legs, kind of like letting people get a quick pet as she trots along and just keeps them occupied.
And so as this is happening, more and more children, until all half dozen or so of them sort of realize what's going on, except for Pascal, who's kind of waiting in the doorway. And Pascal has seen Mars before.
And I want to say one more thing, like, Pascal, Mars has missed you. Come say hello. And I want to beckon him towards me and kind of have them both get to me.
Are you saying you don't trust me as a game master?
I'm just rolling with it.
So when Pascal comes over, Mars seems to react to him in the same way that he reacted before, at least looking at it and checking it out. Pascal does recall Mars, gets down on hands and knees and starts playing with Mars, maybe even telling the other kids not to be so rough with Mars. Cats don't like it when you rough with them. Don't scare them. Don't poke her tail. Leave her alone. To you, Mars seems at ease with Pascal the same way, and Pascal seems at ease.
All right. I wanted to try and indicate to TBD to take a look at these guys.
Yeah, I'll take the hint and give him a gander.
You got a moment. Go ahead.
With the
And we'll
old
even call
goggles.
this an assist from Vesper, right? Like all this. So, Dietrich, tell me, you got an assist, and you're getting better at using the goggles.
Vesper, TBD.
Mm-hmm.
So the task
Well,
isn't gonna be...
I'm trained in perception.
Then in that case, I'm just going to say you don't even have to roll.
Oh, I
That's
don't,
3.
because I have expert skill.
Well,
I love that.
We're not role-playing, ladies and gentlemen. We're just playing. Or at least Dietrich does not.
That's right.
They are Vagavurian. And looking at them...
Do they look like they're naturally kids? They're not adults in disguise as kids?
Yes, right. Okay, that's a good way of putting it. I like that. Yes, looking at them, they look like they're children. Vagavurian children.
Skin
And they
dog
have...
children?
What's that?
Skin dog children?
No. No. But they do have kind of a weird look. Like some of them have these enormous eyes that are kind of like offset on their head, and then others of them are kind of like more like creature-like.
There's definitely species I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, there are a few in there, and if I wanted to detail every single one of them, I would. But essentially what you're looking at, I'd rather, for the sake of brevity, just say that what you're looking at are Vagavurians, and maybe a couple of them you recognize from your ride through Tremontaine way back at like episode 3, 4, or 5. I don't remember what it was. But they look like kids. They really are kids.
All right, I will say over the octocomms don't worry. They are Vegavarians, but they are actually kids. They're not skin dogs.
I want to, while I have Pascal close to me with Mars, just whisper to him like, "Do you know these children are truly your friends?" Question mark.
He leans in. Yeah, they're all part of the BRooD, right? That's what you wanted.
I sub-vocalize they're part of the BRooD. Is it a little obvious for us to go trotting through the front door, Pascal?
I don't know.
How about a back way?
Oh, okay. There's a back way. We could do that. And he looks
Gripes,
over at the
Vesper.
door, which he's just
You're
left
touchy.
open.
What am I doing?
I'm going in the front door.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Stepping in through the front door, you enter what appears to be just the standard sort of entryway, kind of like that you would see in a tenement building of 1918. And that is to say, it kind of looks like a house almost, with a stairwell that goes up and then like another stairwell that goes up. There are people kind of coming and going, and most of them pay you no mind from generally looking around. But if you want to get more specific than that, you're going to have to start like rolling and really like looking.
Seems okay,
But
boys.
I will say you stand out. You do not seem, because you hear a lot of Italian being shouted this way and that, and you know, being the Irish fellow that you are, you completely you and your cat stand out. And you're looking back through the doorway at your three buddies who are all kind of waiting, and maybe, I'm assuming, looking at Vesper as if he is the cooler head.
Y'all do what you want.
You guys going in the front or splitting up?
I am still kneeling by the car, petting my cat, watching what's kind of going on.
I'm in.
I'll stand up and say, "All right, Pascal, I guess we'll go through the front. We're ready to meet them now."
Pascal looks at Vesper, and the truth is he's got a little bit more of an investment in Vesper because of Mars and so he waits, and he's like, "Mr. Vesper, what should we do? You might be right, but your friends seem to be a little thick in the head."
You're a very smart boy, Pascal.
Oh, thank you.
I've
Be
known
very
that
happy
about
with
you all along. Why don't you and your friends continue playing your game, and then I'll just look at things for a moment before I decide.
Oh, okay, but be careful down there. I mean, if you're going down alone, it's very dangerous, especially these days.
Over the octacoms, I say, "Oh, it's dangerous, you say, Pascal?" What do you mean? And then to him, "What do you mean, dangerous?"
Well, there have been more and more of the ghosts that we see down there. And I mean, they haven't done anything bad yet, but I don't know. My mom and dad told me to watch out for them, and everybody else. They say they can't hurt us, but I'm just a little worried.
Okay, then why don't you help my friends downstairs, and I'm just gonna look around here for a moment, but I'll be there directly.
Oh, okay, but I feel better going with you because you seem like the smarter person.
Don't worry, Mars will be with you. She'll protect you.
Oh, I can take
You can
Mars?
carry her. She'll sit right on your shoulder.
Oh, okay, that sounds great. But will you come along soon?
Very soon, very soon.
Oh,
Go on.
okay. All right. And he kind of
You and the BRooD children.
he scoops up Mars, and Mars, because maybe you've told Mars it's okay and sort of given this a blessing, is like happy, and Mars starts like kind of pawing, making bread. What is it? Kneading bread.
Kneading, yeah.
Like on his shoulder, and like purring in his ear, and he he takes him along. And what's funny is you see Mars kind of switch around to the back of Pascal's neck and kind of lay over Pascal, his shoulders, as if he were just riding him the way that a human might ride an animal. And so he continues forward, and the whole group of children joins anyone that chose to go into the lobby or the entranceway.
And just to set it, I don't want to stay out here for long. I just want to make sure everyone gets in, look around, see if anyone's like watching, and I want to use my vision to like see if there's any doorways or that kind of shit.
I like it. So can I assume that Z and Dietrich are going to both join Murphy?
Yeah, and I'm keeping the goggles on.
Okay.
See what the rest of the residents look like.
So as you enter, now that you've kind of entered the, well, I don't want to call it that. Let's just say that now that you've crossed through the threshold of this building, you can see that it is a very healthy mix of Vagavurians and humans. And actually, you can kind of hear the echoes that almost hurt your ears. A lot of that Italian that you're listening to is not Italian. It's a Vagavurian. And it's happening, it's coming at you so quick, like a rapid-fire machine gun, that you're not actually able to understand it. Not just because it's happening quickly, but because the language is happening the way that one native speaker speaks with another. Right? So there's a way that you learn a language, and then you know the grammar, you know the mechanics of it, and as long as people are kind of throwing you softballs linguistically, you can kind of follow along and get what's going on. But that moment when you hear two native speakers talking to each other, it's just like off the charts, and it's all like a blur. And looking around, what you see, Dietrich, through your goggles is adult versions of many of the children. And I don't mean like literally adult versions. I mean like the species that you saw among the children. They're now like the two bug eyes with like one of them kind of offset. You see like another one that kind of looks like it's got like feathers kind of coming out of its head. And then another one that just looks like, actually it just looks like a big pile of jello that's sort of walking along, leaving an oozy trail behind it. You're looking at Vagavurians, and they're walking among humans.
Okay.
So with that, let's go then to Vesper. And Vesper, while they're observing this on the inside of the building, Vesper, what are you doing? What are you looking for?
I'm going to just go around to the far side of the car and like a man just spending some time hanging out for a moment, and I want to like see if anyone's fleeing the area and look or use my goggles to look for doorways.
Ah, that is correct. You're looking
like
for doorways.
Inside the actual building, but also around here or anything that's opening or closing.
Looking around, you don't see any strange activity. Without rolling, I'm just going to tell you, looking around, you don't see anything weird, nothing strange that's going on. It just appears like another day on the north end. If you want to look for something specifically, I'm going to ask you to sort of roll for it and like use, but it pretty much looks like it's a mid-afternoon in Boston at this point. Now, as far as doorways go, looking around you, there is something that you notice that's unusual, and that is an odd glow. An odd glow to the sky, the horizon, in the direction of Commonwealth Pier out in the ocean. And the feeling you get, you're not sure because you're still sort of learning about this, but the feeling that you get is that there's something big out there on the horizon.
Yeah.
Looking around at other buildings, however, you can see that there's something blocking. It's that blocking that you saw when you went to the Sunshine House those nights ago. And if you recall, you got this kind of negative sort of energy. It's like there was an absence of energy there. And you can kind of see it in some of the tenements 2 or 3 buildings down. You see one maybe looking down as you crane your neck around a street a few buildings down. And then when you bring your eyes back, you notice there does appear to be one underground, somewhere in the basement level of this building that the rest of your compatriots are about to enter.
Yep. Well, there's not much I can do with it, but make a note, and I'll just make my way across the street and into the building and try and catch up.
Jogging back, you do make your way back to the entranceway, and you rejoin your companions, and now they are all there, kind of gathered with the children, and you can kind of see that the children every once in a while are saying hello or speaking in Italian that actually you, Dietrich, pick up as Vagavurian, and they're speaking with their parents and family members. And every so often, you might hear a word like friend or Mr. Haley or something along those lines. And the Vagavurians that you see with them kind of give you a bit of a look and then just sort of nod to the children. And everyone seems a little bit, a little suspicious of you. But if you want to proceed, no one's stopping you, and Pascal is ready to take you downstairs into the basement.
Lead the way, Pascal. Time's wasting.
So Pascal leads you down into the basement stair by stair, and it gets colder and darker as you go. And the only source of light, strangely, is not electrical light, but simple candles and torches that have been lit in the underground. And as you go, you kind of notice, this, Vesper, that you're getting closer and closer to that area where that negative space is. And now that you kind of found it, you've kind of locked onto it, and you can see that it's there. And you get further and further into what appears now almost to be like an underground dungeon, in a way. And there are more and more strange creatures that you see, Dietrich, and they stop, and they look you up and down. And they do indeed look fierce. They look dangerous. But to anyone that cannot see these creatures, they appear human and simply like intimidating bruisers. They're taller, bigger, tougher, angrier looking than any humans you'd ever seen before. And they kind of match up and line up with what you're seeing, Dietrich. So you might see like somebody that's really wide and like immense, like an oak, a human version of this, but then it flickers back and forth between human and Vagavurian, and indeed it kind of matches the strength and weight. And you reach a doorway that you recognize, Vesper, as being the negative space that you had seen from the ground level looking down. And all the children are now passing around and laughing. And at this doorway, there is an immense human. And he looks like he's almost asleep, sitting on a chair. And the moment the children enter this room, all this kind of dank-looking underground just suddenly life is brought to it, and you can hear the echoes and laughs of the children. And this immense, bulky man stands up, and when he looks down at you, you see him, Dietrich, as the Vagavurian that he is. And he's this kind of gelatinous creature with almost translucent skin, and as he moves and approaches you, leaving a trail of this oozy kind of snail-like wake, at each step he seems bigger and bigger and bigger, and he puts out his hand, and his hand is easily almost the size of your chest, and he tells you, "Stop! They're not allowed in here." And he says it in Italian that's thick, but you, Dietrich, recognize it as Vagavurian. And Pascal laughs and chuckles and just says, "No, no, no, they're here. They're here for the BRooD. They are friends. They will not enter. I don't know them. And if they know what's good for them, they had better leave." And he leans forward and he looks at each and every one of you. And keep in mind that this man is speaking what he thinks is Italian, which is really Vagavurian, and he appears to be human, and he thinks that none of you can see him as the Vagavurian that he really is.
All right, so I want to reach in and get my business card and give it to him.
Oh.
I can't think of anything clever off the top of my head, but I want to make a reference to what he looks like as I do this. So that I give him the hint that I know I can see him for what he is.
As you hand your business card to him, he's ignoring it and leaning in. But the moment you say what he looks like, he stops. He lowers himself almost down to your level. And when he does it, he becomes like this mountain that's expanding. And he snaps the card from your fingers and he looks at it. "Mr. Haley
sent us to see Jim."
Jim. And when you say that, as wide as he was before, he now gets tall, and he hands the card back to you. He looks down at the little children. "It's dangerous in there now. Do they know where they're going?" And Pascal says, "Well, I didn't ask them." And he looks back at the four of you.
We were told there might be a safe house.
There is nothing safe here, human. And now he's switched. He's clearly...
Regardless, we still need to see Jim.
He frowns, and you can kind of see his jaw just sort of like grinding back and forth. I need to stay on duty. I cannot help you once you walk through the door. Humans.
Don't really see that as a problem, Mac.
He becomes taller once again, and he leans over towards you, and he holds out these hands again that are almost as big as your chest. And he looks like he wants to just crush you. And then he stops. You would be wise to be nice to me, human. And then he lowers himself again. If you wish to go inside, you may. But beware, there are ghosts and other dangerous things you'll find in the underground. We cannot guarantee your safe passage should you choose to enter.
I'm going to turn to my compatriots and say, do you get the feeling that Langdon doesn't know what the word safe house means?
I'm not convinced Langdon knows what anything means.
Right.
But let's go forward. There's no turning back. This is where we need to be, right?
Jim's in
Right.
there, right?
That's right.
Yeah, we need to speak to Jim.
If you can
Is-
find Jim, perhaps he can help you if you know Jim.
Lead the way, then.
Find
Open the
a way.
door.
So, with that, he takes it as he shrugs as if to say, well, it's your funeral. And he elbows a pad behind him with his elbow. And the moment that happens, the doorway kind of like twists and turns and folds in on itself. And what you're essentially looking at is kind of like a series of passages and tunnels. And when this drops, you get the feeling, Vesper, that, or actually, you don't even get the feeling. You know that what you're looking at is a passage into Vagaver. And I want to remind you that Vagaver time doesn't work like Earth time, if you recall. When you're in Vagaver for a few days, months can pass on Earth. Have fun, humans. Humans all talk. Humans frightened.
I will gesture to Murphy. After you, into Vagaver we go.
There's very little that intimidates me. I'll step on in.
I
just want to ask a question. Where's Madeline? Is she with us? Did we leave her in the car?
Oh, we can retcon this and we can totally leave it up to you guys. Do you want to have brought Madeline along?
I thought we were supposed to leave her with the BRooD, right? So I thought we were bringing her with us, I guess.
Yeah, we're all headed to the safe house.
Right.
Yeah, unless you
Yeah.
left her in the dangerous house.
Oh, he meant the ghost house.
Right.
Mhm.
The haunted
Right.
house.
It's just a translation problem, guys. That's all.
Oh,
Ghost
yeah.
is safe.
All right. What happens if we take speed powder in Vagaver time?
I don't know. You
I
guys
did
have never done it
when
before.
we were at the lighthouse.
That is
I
true.
took it in the breakfast area.
Yeah,
and
you ended up having to wait around for a long time, I think, or something like.
I didn't have
remember
the
what it was
mastery
That's
or
right.
control.
because you
That's right.
couldn't
At
get
that time.
control of it.
And this is one of the negative space areas we're walking into.
It seems like it.
Yeah, I'm
And
just
looking at it, it looks like one of those negative space areas that you had seen before.
What's the worst that can happen, Vesper? And we'll just do.
I'll follow
When
him in.
you. Okay, so everybody else is following in?
Don't like this.
yeah, there we go.
If we go to Vagaver, come back to a planet overrun with XE German soldiers, but I don't see what other option we have.
Okay, so that's what we're doing, right?
Yep.
So everybody steps forward, and the moment you step forward, you hear, and then behind you, the creature that had been kind of trying to intimidate you elbows that panel again, and the door folds and twists and shuts behind you. And you are now essentially in what appears to be a dark underground hallway. And as you look around, Vesper, you're the only one that can really see this, but you get the feeling that you're inside of some sort of machine, like an energy. And there's kind of like conduits of energy that are running along the corners of the passageway. And basically, they get brighter in the corners and brighter towards the edges than they are in the flatter spaces. And when you touch things on the inside, what you touch are walls that seem like basement walls, but there's a vibration to them. And this is something that everybody can feel. This vibration, this energy, almost an electricity. And what it feels like to you is as if you're inside of something, some sort of conduit of energy. Are we doing anything, or are we just going to continue forward?
Murph's in the lead.
Nothing to it but to do it. Let's go.
So with this, I think this is probably a good point to take a 10-minute intermission. We're going to pick up while we all take our respective biological breaks. We're going to pick up in 10 minutes. I hope everybody will be back in 10. If you like what you're watching, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We had a wonderful discussion about the 1970s adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So the mission for tonight is to figure out which one of us is the fake us and which are the real. Or wait, which is the fake me? Which is the fake you? I don't know. Maybe I'm fake. We all know it. Or maybe we don't know it.
If I'm not me, who the hell am I?
Who am I? What is that from? That sounds really fun.
That's from Total Recall.
Oh, that's right. I should have recognized your Austrian accent.
No, it was pretty good.
It was
Pretty good
so
Arnold impression
perfect.
right there.
Yes, I thought what was happening? I got confused because Arnold Schwarzenegger was suddenly in our game night, and I was like, what's going on? At any rate, we are back. And when last we left our heroes with a gaggle of children, they had entered the basement level of a tenement in 1918 Boston, hoping to be connected with a representative of the FiERCE BRooD, or to at least meet the FiERCE BRooD. They were looking for a fellow by the name of Jim, and they've just entered the passages beneath the tenement. So for all intents and purposes, they believe that they are in Vagaver. Whether or not this turns out to be true, we will have to see. You are now in this hallway, gentlemen, and I want to make a few connections here that I actually sort of failed to make earlier on. I want to connect this to your the very first time that you spent time in Vagaver, and that is the vibrations that you felt in the walls as you passed through them, and the basement level that you snuck into by entering the basement at Fenway Park. The basement that you're in now, the passages, share real similarities to that. Kind of conjures up images of those moments when you were underground first meeting Harold Coatsworth III, looking around the pipes, the walls themselves, the way they leak, all seem very, very similar. However, the difference for Vesper now is that he can see this energy running through the walls and running through the passages. And then for you, Dietrich, you haven't seen anything yet, but you would, of course, you assume, be able to see Vagaverians were you to spot one. But at this point, there's a passage leading forward into darkness. What do you guys want to do?
Is Pascal still with us, or did
Pascal
he stay?
and his gaggle of children are
all the kids are with us.
Unless you don't want them to be.
I'll take a guide.
No, he was guiding us, so yeah.
Yeah.
They're part of the BRooD, right?
That's what you're
Vesper
assuming,
said.
and that's what they've told you, and that's what, or at least told Vesper, and now Vesper is, I assume, responsible for all of this. As you move forward, you just move past different rooms and passages and things like that as you go, until you actually come to what appears to be a very simple doorway that has, for you, Vesper, a very prominent glow around the arches of it. And that's the only thing that really makes it stand out to you as this happens, as you move forward.
Throughout, as we're traveling, does it just seem like it's one big negative space area?
It does.
And then this is out of the blue?
Yeah, it feels like it's been negative space area, but it's got those glowing kind of corners everywhere that you look. But now you come to a rather prominent looking doorway. Very prominent glow to it. It stands out. And the children step through it, and they don't seem to have suffered any adverse effects. And they look back at the four of you as if to ask why you stopped. It's this way. We can take you. We'll take you to the meeting hall. Come on through.
I'll step through.
Yeah, I'll go through.
Yeah.
How about you, Vesper?
I do. I'm pretty trusting of Pascal and know that, he's going to lead us someplace. And I am definitely letting Murphy go first.
Murphy is happy to do so.
The moment the four of you step through, you are completely shocked, and it's as if you're waking up somewhere else. Where this may be, not completely certain. But you look up and the sky is overcast. You're in a field. And as you walk forward, you're in a field that's just mud, weeds. And you start to hear the sound of a motor humming overhead, getting closer and closer. And then you hear shouts coming from behind you. As you look behind you, what you see is a trench. And stepping out of the trench, climbing and clawing, you begin to see men in overcoats and doughboy helmets. And they all give out a loud cry, and you realize that you're in front of all of these men as they come charging forward. And when I say in front, you're 10, 15 feet in front of them. Looking down, you're now wearing the clothing of a doughboy. And you realize you're part of a charge. And these doughboys, hundreds of them, looking up and looking down, charge over the edge with their guns, with bayonets fixed. And suddenly, there's a volley of fire coming from the other side. And the buzzing that you heard is a biplane as it comes in over top of you with the markings of a British unit. And it begins to fire into the mud in front of you, and you realize you're on a battlefield between two trenches, and you seem to be charging forward.
What color are our uniforms?
They are the doughboy. Looking at them, it's hard to tell. They're covered in mud, but looking around you, you're with Allied troops.
Okay.
They're all screaming as they charge
Are the kids
forward.
all uniformed too?
The kids are not there.
It's just the four of us? And
Yep.
we're still us. We don't look like other people, right?
Well, you haven't looked at yourselves yet. But I guess looking around,
Looking at
Frank, why don't you go ahead and make a roll?
it's just like an observation roll.
Yeah, we'll call it an observation roll.
I'll burn a point of intellect just because.
Okay.
That's one extra piece of effort.
Yeah.
I rolled a 14.
Nice. These are not your friends next to you. You don't know who they are, but you're not looking at Z, Vesper, or Dietrich.
TBD.
And they're just sort of standing there. They look like soldiers. You're looking at soldiers from, basically, these are British. And now charging all around you, it just continues. Do any of you want to do anything?
Yeah, do I have a rifle?
Mm-hmm. It's right in your hand.
Boy.
They're charging past you now, and they're screaming, and now you can kind of you hear like this stutter of a machine gun coming from the biplane in the sky above as it begins to strafe the enemy trench.
I head back towards the trench that these guys came out of.
Moving back, you have to like your feet in boots are sinking into the mud, and like even as you try to pull one out, your boot almost comes off. You have to like you have to yank it back on, and then you trip and tumble and fall into a trench. And now that overcast is now turned to a kind of a more of a foggy rain at this point, and you land on your back on slats of wood that have been thrown at the bottom of the trench to serve as kind of a walkway. And you realize like you're just in, if you had rolled off the walkway, you'd be in like half a foot of stagnant water.
I'm fairly simplistic, and my motivation is the charge. I am going to turn to follow the mass of people. I don't know where my friends are. I'm just going to move.
So then you charge forward with them, and it takes you a moment to kind of get your bearings properly, and you start looking into and across the field. And essentially what you see is you're looking at the enemy soldiers, Germans, coming at you. But at a certain point, they stop. And they stop just at the edge. And what you see them start to do is they're pulling down masks.
Oh shit.
Is anyone else doing anything? Vesper?
Yeah, am disoriented, and I pull my pocket watch and flip it open just to try and orient myself. And I shake my head, and I kind of notice that the people who were immediately around me, the four of us, it seemed, one's charging forward, another's heading back. And I just want to, I'm stricken enough. I got to see if like we're coming from this other shared delusional space. Is this an illusion?
You're feeling for your pocket watch, and it's not there. All you've got like maybe a timepiece, but it's obviously it's a watch that's cracked and just sort of like fogged up. It's some infantryman or doughboy that's just been, wearing this watch for no reason, maybe.
And I noticed that the person next to me is a little confused and looking at their watch.
Yes, I would say that you would, because you and this other person are pretty much the only two that are now the only ones standing. Everyone else is charged forward. Z has just kind of done a roll into the trench, and then Murphy has charged forward. And I would probably say, unless you want to dispute me on this, everybody was so disoriented when he kind of dropped into this situation. You didn't quite see Murphy as he went forward, and didn't quite see Z as he rolled back into the trench. But you would, at this point, there's a pause and a lull. And now what you see, Dietrich and Vesper, are just a wall, the back end of a wall of soldiers, doughboy soldiers, as allied soldiers, as they charge forward.
Right. Hey, Vesper, is that you? As the two of us are standing there.
And you would hear that, Vesper.
All right. Do I consider that I am myself?
Yes,
Vesper?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So one thing I should say.
I'm wondering how deep this goes. Yeah.
You are Vesper.
I don't recognize the person. Do I recognize the voice?
No.
No. I'm Vesper. Who are you?
You hear popping sounds now in the air. Something coming from the other side, from the enemy side. And Murphy, now you're charging forward with your men, and a lot of them have just suddenly kind of hit pause, and they've kicked in their boots. And what you see are basically, you see gas being fired off into the air.
How far ahead are the enemy?
I'm going to say 50 yards, maybe at the most, but they're firing in this direction. And watching it, it's plumes of kind of like smoke that just sort of tear up along the horizon. And you know, like you've seen, not this, but you can guess that that is arcing over in your direction. What are you up to, Z, in the trench?
I am trying to hail my friends through the octocom.
Yep.
They can hear you.
See, where are you?
Yeah, I'm back in the trench. Where did you guys go? Where are you all?
Now someone's marching up to you. It looks like somebody with stripes on their shoulders, and now they're like screaming at you, and they can kind of hear that you should be going out there. What are you doing, you fucking coward? What are you doing? They're just over and over, and they're trying to grab you and pull you up as you're speaking.
Grabbing who precisely?
Oh, I'm
Grabbing-
sorry.
grabbing
This is
me.
to Z. To Z.
Right.
Someone marched up to you in the trench. Somebody with a lot of stripes on his shoulders or on his arms.
I use one of my newfound powers, kind of out of
Mhm.
fear, and it's called hover.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically just stretch my arms out and kind of rise above the ground into the air, and it's not really flying. It's more like a levitation type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to rise up so I can get a good vantage point of the battlefield and what's happening.
So as this happens, whoever it is, the officer that is, or maybe non-com that has come to grab you, just lets go in awe, and you begin to float up. How far up can you go?
It's not specific, but I'm guessing, I could,
Space.
all the way to space.
Yeah, sure.
I'm probably
Yeah.
gonna try to
I'll give
go
it
up
to you.
maybe 20 feet or so.
Easily. So you make it up, and what you're looking at from the bird's eye view are two groups of men that are charging at each other, and you can tell that the first group of men, the one that you were charging with, has suddenly just stopped, and they all look like a bunch of racehorses, like just that have like suddenly just put the brakes on, and you see those arcs of something having been launched in the air, and you start to hear the whistle as they come down, breaking the sound barrier. And now those arcs are heading towards you, just dozens of capsules that are heading your way. And you see the biplane that had been strafing kind of banks off and just heads off in a different direction. And you start to hear the sounds of people, and you hear this, Murphy, as people are yelling, gas, gas, and you see the Germans.
Do we have
Is there-
masks?
You feel for your masks. You have one.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna deploy it. I'm gonna pull it on.
Make a roll for this.
Just a quick question. Am I limping? Do
Um,
I have my limp?
Ooh, this is a great question. Yes,
Okay.
you did.
Oh, I
Is
rolled a
anyone
19.
else trying to get a mask on? You've kind of heard the cries now of gas, and people have stopped. And
Yeah. Let's try it.
Everybody
I
go
probably
ahead.
wouldn't until I see someone put one on, and then I'll follow suit.
Okay. We can say that, I mean, you're going to see Dietrich try it in a moment. So if all four of you want to try and get your gas masks on.
Sure.
I am skilled in breathing apparatus deployment.
Self-contained underwater
specialized?
breathing apparatus? Are you, is your name?
TBD is specialized. I'm only trained in.
Right. Yours automatically succeed half the time.
In this time period, it's one of those Scooby-Doo underwater giant metal
Right.
helmets that go over
No,
his head.
unfortunately, it's not quite that good. Actually, in this time period, you would think it would be better than it is, but at that time, it wasn't so hot. So each one of you, go ahead and make me a roll for this, and let me know if there's any sort of adjustment you want me to make to the roll.
I'm adding 2 levels of effort because I'm just horrified
Mm-hmm.
in this sudden stressful situation and everything you've heard about the war and everything that's
Let's go with
going
you
on.
first. Yeah, so 2 levels of effort. Anything else?
I don't got it.
Okay, go ahead and make your roll.
13.
All right. Let's get our other rolls in there. I got to write that down. Who wants to
I
go
wanted
next?
to add 1 level of speed effort,
Yeah.
just because there's a bit of a panic going on, and I rolled a 19.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
I am doing the same, one level of speed effort, and I rolled a 9.
Okay. Jared?
I'm gonna do 2 levels of intellect effort, and I only rolled a 7.
So whistling through the air above all of your heads, arcing in the sky as the biplane just peels away and heads off, perhaps maybe to refuel or something else, you're not really sure, reload. These capsules hit with force all around you, at your feet, raining down. And behind them comes essentially these loud successive kind of explosions, these concussive blasts. And what you kind of figure, and you're not really sure about this, but you're sort of figuring that as they're exploding, what they're really doing is they're just blowing gas in many different directions. And indeed, that's what they bring with them. And there's this quiet fog that begins to settle, and men start yanking on their masks, and some of them start like coughing, and then a few of them start screaming. Unfortunately, Dietrich, you're the first one to suffer the effects of this gas as you barely get your mask out of your pack, trying to orient yourself. And unfortunately, I'm not going to describe it, but it's a pretty horrific feeling as you inhale the gas and your eyes first burn, first tear up and then burn, and then you're unable to see, you're unable to breathe, and you just fall over into the mud and you lose all sense of what's going on. The same thing happens to you, Steve, as this gas...
even though I'm 20 feet in the air.
Oh, shoot. I am so sorry. Actually, if I had known that, I wouldn't even have had you roll.
Oh, okay.
You are watching this happen as the gas just slowly drifts and envelops.
But I still can't recognize my compatriots, right?
No, looking down, you cannot tell who's who. James, I'm sorry, Vesper, same thing with you. This is painful. And
Vesper's 60 feet in the air.
he's in space.
That's
Both
right.
Dietrich and Vesper, whatever your final thoughts are at that moment, they are your own, and to share later if you want. The only person who seems able to get through all of this is you, Murphy, who manages to get your mask on just in time, fumbling with the clasps, and you see what almost, I mean, it's like a wall of gas just rolling across the surface, and you see men disappear into it, and suddenly things are quiet until you start to hear the coughing and the screams. And people go down. And then that's the last you see of them, because now you're just looking around and all you see is a sea of white. And if you get your bearings about you, you might sort of be able to figure out which direction you came from. So at this point, the only two people who are in the game are both Murphy and Z, who's hovering above. What would you two like to do?
I'm trying to hail my compatriots. Murphy, Vesper.
Murphy
TBD.
hears you, so Murphy, you're able to.
Z, are you here?
Yeah, look up.
I'll just say that looking
I
up.
think
Go ahead.
it's nothing but smoke and
Yeah.
mist. I can't see anything. There's no
Can
one
you
around.
wave your hand in the air. I don't know if I can see individuals on the ground, but wave your hand in the air. I can't make anybody out.
So I'll say this. If you raise your hand now, Murphy, you can kind of tell you're not going to, you may be able to make it through to like, there's certain, every once in a while, there's like a patch of empty space if you want to try and make it for something like that. Eventually doing so, you are able to make it. And then you do see Z, and then the gas envelops you again. And then you have to kind of like make your way to another. But you see this Z on the ground every so often, someone waving to you. But unfortunately, as the gas kind of rolls and moves around, unfortunately, mostly what you see are a lot of men that are down in the mud, dropped, struggling, keeled over. A few of them are crawling, and they're trying to make their way back to where you were just a moment or so ago.
Can I see Z at all? You can see me waving my rifle over my head. But
Every so often, you can see him when the clouds break.
Z, are Vesper, Dietrich, are they here?
I don't know. They haven't responded.
Where are we? We're in the war. The war's over.
We're on a battlefield. I don't know if we're back in Vagaver or back in time.
I guess it's survival mode at this point.
Can I get a sense of how far the cloud, like from what I've seen of him waving his hand, in what direction would be the best place for him to escape the cloud?
Yeah, you could kind of talk him through it. Like every once in a while, the cloud sort of opens up in parts, and you can kind of, now that you've seen him waving his arms, and now that you can kind of separate him from the other men that have survived and are trying to make their way back. But everybody's moving in like different directions, and a lot of them seem kind of backward. There are a few that seem like they're going back in the right direction.
All right, so I try to guide him, maybe not necessarily towards the trench, but towards open air, whatever the closest open air might be.
Go ahead and what I want you to do is go ahead and make a roll.
Okay.
To see if you can guide him through it.
Okay.
And
I'll use a.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say I would use an intellect effort. Let me see what other skills I have. I do have a finding a place to hide skill.
We can count this kind of in reverse, like, yeah, getting out, escaping from the gas. Sure.
Okay. So I'll do those two. I don't really have any. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Go ahead and make your roll.
I rolled a 15.
15 gets him out, and now he's headed back. And he is going back toward the trench. And there are a few stragglers now, just a few men that are making their way back. And you hear a lot of just, I mean, you hear tears. You hear crying, you hear sobbing, you hear coughing, you hear vomiting, you hear like people coughing up and hacking up snot. People that make it back to eventually to the trench and like pop their mask and just collapse and roll into the mud. And Murphy's one of those fellows. And now there are medics that you can kind of see that are putting on their own masks and they're getting ready, and you can kind of you can they've got the familiar cross emblem on their masks and on their uniforms, and they're getting ready to go out there, and they sort of throw themselves out to go after some of the survivors or those that they can kind of salvage from this mess. Are you going to go down there and join him?
Yeah, I'll hover down, try to avoid the gas if possible.
You're able to do so. The wind starts to blow at that point. And actually, now the wind is blowing it back towards the Germans. And it's heading back in that direction. And you're not really sure what's going on, but you do hear some rather weak cheers from the Allies as they realize that the Germans are about to get a taste of their own medicine. And now there are people coming and going, and now anyone that was shaking you before is not shaking you because people are running this way and that way. They're dragging people in. They're popping the masks. They're throwing water in their faces. They're trying to do their best to clean up the mess, but a lot of men just lost their lives.
I'm gonna see if I can help anybody who's struggling. I do have a repair flesh ability, which according to the rules, I think it's very rules, specific. It's talking about like the levels of damage, that we have. So I'm not sure how it would work as far as
we can make it work
to help these guys.
Don't worry about it. Looking around, you do come across someone that's being helped by a few men, and they've popped his mask off. They've stripped off his clothing. They're flushing him with the dirty, stagnant water that's been in there, been in the trenches, and they're trying to clean him off. And they're actually sticking their finger in his mouth, trying to clear the gunk out and all of that.
Okay.
And there's this horrible look to him, like he looks like a lot of his flesh has like been burned badly with this, and it's all collected like around his nose and around his lips and his mouth.
Okay, so yeah, using that ability, it moves them one step off of the impaired or debilitated track. So it's like a healing, basically a healing.
I'm not even going to make you roll for it as you step up to him and you just sort of clear those guys away, and they're like they're like angry when you do it, but the moment you set your hands on him, there's a clear kind of difference, and he almost jumps forward and he coughs up a bunch of horrible phlegm and gunk. What are you up to at this point, Murphy?
Well, I'm not a healer. That's not my thing, but I'm going to make sure my rifle's in working order, and I'm going to look out across the trench just to where the danger was to make sure the Germans aren't going to sweep in. I've gone into combat mode. They're not coming?
Doesn't look like they're coming. It's going back in their direction, and I think they're more worried about what's going on their side right now than anything else. And they had their masks. They popped their masks earlier, so you don't know for sure.
I'm going to get out of the trench carefully and see if there's anybody in the immediate vicinity that could stand to be dragged back into our trench.
There are a few, and you go out there, and they're guys that are just like, they look like they're trying to make it to the finish line, and you just grab them by the scruff of their jackets, and you pull them in, and then you just toss them. Like you go after one, and then two, and then three or four more, slowly. And then, most alarmingly of all, you start to hear gunshots coming from the other side. And then with that, through the fog of this chemical, you see a charge of Germans breaking through, and they're cutting down the American, or I should say the Allied soldiers, as they charge forward, and they're just moving, they're grinding through that mud, and they're coming this way, and they're getting closer and closer with every step as they take out men in their path with a gunshot here and there. They're charging, and now many of the men in the trench are all trying to get their rifles ready as they charge forward.
All right. I'm slipping back into the trench, getting cover, and I'm going to try to take aim at some of these onrushing Germans.
How about you, Z? Are you still helping, or?
Well, I mean, as I see this happening, I'll kind of try to duck under some cover and stay close to Murphy if I can.
That line is getting closer now, so if you want to fire at any point, I mean, you're welcome to fire whenever you want. I'm not even going to do initiative at this point, because there's just like, now there's shots that are just like whistling over your heads at this point.
And I will burn 3 speed to activate my deadly aim skill, which for 1 minute will add 2 damage to all ranged attacks. And I'm just going to line up whoever is in my sights and start shooting.
Go ahead and make your roll for that.
12.
You take out quite a few of them as they come at you. And, you get one like right through the eye. You get another one square in the chest. You get another one, you just wing them on the arm. Are you up to anything, Z? They're getting
how close? They're getting closer?
Yeah, they're like 20 yards out now. They're about to they're going to drop in the trench.
All right, I am going to put up a force field barrier, which is a 10-foot by 10-foot energy field, solid, opaque, so they'll be able to see it. But I'm going to put it up right as they're charging, and it's a level 2 barrier and lasts for 10 minutes. And I'm putting it right up in front of where Murphy and I are holed up in the trench.
Okay, so go ahead and do me a favor. Make a what level was it again?
It's a level 2 barrier.
Okay, so as they approach, they sort of move around it, and they're not able to get to you. But at this point, they rush the trench, and now essentially the two of you are in this bubble. And it's just like a flood. It's like an anthill at this point, just being like covered, overtaken by ants. And now, as you look around you, it's just hand-to-hand Mortal Kombat between everyone. And there's just, you can kind of hear the muffled screams and the shouts, and a gunshot every so often. You hear like a knife like just slamming into flesh over and over again as the battle kind of ensues all around you, and the two of you are kind of in this barrier.
I'm just going to continue to shoot until there's no ammunition left in the magazine and the extra bandoliers that I have, whatever. I'm just going to, they're a lot closer now, so shooting away.
So you're just picking them off from inside this barrier. Does this allow Z, does this allow like projectiles to go through, or is it just
I don't think so. I think it's a protective barrier.
Well, that first one.
Remember that scene where in the compactor in Star Wars where Han takes a shot? It's magnetically sealed.
All right,
yeah,
so there's no continued shooting. I'd give one a shot, but clearly it won't go through, so Oh,
Murphy, what is going on?
I don't know. Maybe these are the ghosts that guard was talking about and that the kids were mentioning. I don't know. This is completely unreal. You don't even look like UZ.
Yeah, where did we get into these uniforms?
It's as if we're in other people's skins.
Go ahead, and now I want the two of you to make an intellect roll. Particularly, I'm going to give you a level, Frank, for that observation. Make an intellect roll.
I rolled an 18.
Ooh, there we go.
I rolled a 6.
I'm Brand.
You're trapped
I'm
forever.
Brand.
I can say stuff out loud, but it doesn't mean anything in my own head.
All right, so with that, Dietrich and Vesper, the two of you slam face first into the ground from blackness. And as you look up, you're in an immense chamber. And it almost looks like you're in, an immense chamber or a small arena. Dark, with lights that create columns of brightness, with swirling motes of dust in them. And looking all around, you're looking at, well, it's like you're on the killing floor of some sort of coliseum somewhere. But it's underground, and it's smaller than any coliseum you've ever seen before. And standing, or I should say, in front of you directly, is a large dais. And on top of it are 5 or 6 shadowy-looking creatures, 3 of whom you recognize. One you recognize as the woman that you saw. Oh my God, that's the scariest looking cat
No,
I've ever seen.
this is so creepy.
Three of whom you recognize, one of whom is the woman that you saw all those games ago.
The desk.
Not at the desk. The one that you saw in the basement when you first passed through into Vagaver. The other one you make out is that chitinous-looking man, the man with the weird kind of bony exterior. And the third one, well, let's just say you recognize 2. Let me take that back. And sitting all around you in these stands, and now, again, this looks like, it's almost like you're in a small coliseum built underground with these shafts of light coming down. There's all of this cheering and roaring. And as you stand, 2 light-like spirits eject out of your bodies, and they tumble along the ground. And what you realize you're looking at are 2 soldiers. You, Vesper, recognize Dietrich's soldier, the one that you were just looking at a moment before. And you, Dietrich, recognize Vesper's soldier. It was the one that you were looking at before. And they look around and they look completely frightened by what's going on. And they're grabbing at their face as if they were just gassed, which is pretty much what has just happened. And this roar of the crowd fills the entire arena. And those 5 or 6 figures that are on the dais step forward, and the woman, though, that you recognize from before remains in the back with this chitinous creature, humanoid man. And if you'll allow me, You see a rather large-looking creature, not unlike the one that held you up at the door earlier on. It's kind of wet with this pinkish, translucent kind of skin. You see another creature that looks like a vibrating sack of meat that sort of steps and wobbles forward. You see a younger girl, ghost-like, who hovers forward. She has no feet, but her legs pump as if she were walking. And there's a trail, a ghostly trail that follows after her. And then you see what looks like a man in a trench coat that's just covered in wrappings, like a patchwork quilt, and he's got 2 buttons for eyes, and he carries with him 2 rather large-looking meat cleavers. And when the man with the meat cleavers raises both of his arms, holding them and showing them, they catch the light, some of those shafts of light. And the entire crowd goes silent. And then the man in the back with the chitinous kind of skin, he steps forward. Who are you? He says, his eyes watching the soldiers as they kind of scramble this way and that. And now they clearly look like what you would imagine ghosts to be. When they run through shafts of light, when they tumble, the shafts of light take away their kind of their reality, and it disappears for a moment, and then they emerge on the other side. And actually, as they run through these shafts of light, it's almost like the light slows them down and they tumble out the other side. And they scramble this way and that, looking around, frightened as to where they are, bumping into each other. And now it's up to the 2 of you, because they're not looking at the soldiers, they're looking at you 2.
I stand up, not too fast, dust myself off. Does it feel like I'm wearing the clothes I was wearing?
You're back to normal.
I dust myself off. In one hand, I pull out the pocket watch and look at the time.
The moment you pull that out, you pop it open, right?
Yeah.
There's like a ooh from the crowd, like a murmuring. Like what did he just do? What's he doing?
I raise an eyebrow at that, flap it shut with a click.
Ooh, goes through the crowd again.
What's wrong with this crowd? And I'll take a cue from something I learned from TBD just not long ago, and I'm just going to flick my business card up in the air like this and give it a twirl. Say, we're here to see the FiERCE BRooD. FiERCE BRooD.
When you do this, there's a smattering of what I would describe as pixie dust that follows the card now. As if you're in some other world, some other place, as if.
And I'm just looking straight at the chitinous dude.
He steps forward, and the crowd, or I should say the 5 or 6 on the dais, splits for him and allows him passage. He steps down a stairway. I know you, he says, and he takes the card and looks at it and then hands it back to you. And there's this little trail, kind of light trail of dusty pixie essence as he hands it back to you. I know you. I remember you. And he pauses for a moment as if waiting for you to explain.
Am I there too?
Yes, I'm sorry. You are there.
Oh, okay.
You're right next to him. He looks over at you too.
Okay, then I say I agree. We met you in the basement of Fenway. Well, at least we thought it was Fenway.
He stops for a moment.
Our good buddy, Coatsworth.
Ah. And he leans forward. You are the ones that came looking for the boy. and he looks into the crowd, the arena for lack, or I'm sorry, not the arena, the stands for lack of a better term. And I keep saying this is like a coliseum, but it's not huge. It's like in like a lecture hall in college. And up in the stands, you see Pascal and several of his friends that are there. You are the ones that helped the boy, are you not?
Did.
And you are the one with the cat. And the
Yes,
watch.
I have it. Correct.
Where are the other two? There were two more of you. Where have they gone?
Came through a tunnel and ended up in the war. Vesper and I died in gas, so they must still be in the war.
I see. So let's go back to Vesper, or I'm sorry, let's go back to Murphy and to Z, both of whom have just made... I've forgotten. You've just made your rolls, right? That was the moment where you had your declaration.
Yeah, he rolled a
pretty good.
6. Mine was an 18.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say this was about the question of where were we?
Where we are. With that, you, Z, disappear. And Murphy, you're left alone.
Okay.
And the moment that Z disappears, the bubble disappears.
Damn it.
And
Wait.
you're overrun
I can shoot again.
by Germans. And no matter how many times you fire, more Germans come. And eventually, they swamp you, they overtake you, and then you feel multiple cold blades of steel piercing your body. And then the two of you, together, slam into the ground and are now in the arena with Dietrich and Vesper.
I'll say, welcome to the party.
Ah, says the chitinous man. There they are. I knew there were a few more of you. So, I've heard that you wanted to talk to us about something. We're supposed to be helping hide you. Or something like that. Is that why you're here? He's looking at all four of you, just waiting for somebody to sort of speak.
Partially, I think. I think we may need a little bit of temporary housing. We're going to need some housing for our friend, Madeline, and potentially these two exes that we ended up stumbling into.
When you say
but we also
Exy,
need information.
He's kind of confused by that. Exy, you brought Exy here.
We did not, but someone sure is bringing a whole hell of a lot of Exceed to Earth from Vagaver.
Via ship.
Oh my. This we
And
need
they're
to know more
And
about.
they're returning something back. That's right.
The affairs of men and Vagavurians. What is it that you intend to do here when you hide, humans?
To, I guess, gather more information and potentially find places to act.
This is dangerous business. You do realize that you have come to a sacred spot. a secret spot. And by doing so, you may have brought others, more dangerous ones. Now, you have been vouched for, but I'm not really sure that we can truly trust you. How do we know we can trust you?
Well, Jim saw us fighting Coatsworth.
Jim? Who is Jim? And when you say this, you hear, "Who's Jim? Who's Jim? Who's Jim?" from everyone in the audience as they start to sort of say this over and over and over again, and they're kind of laughing.
I'll describe him, at least as far as I know what he looks like.
So when you describe him, the chitinous-looking man...
Including the business card.
The chitinous-looking man stops, and everyone in the whole room goes silent. And then the man looks back to the woman, who now steps forward. And you hear whisperings. For those of you that don't speak Vagavurian, it comes out incomprehensible. But for you, Dietrich, what you hear is mother, 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 over and over and over again. And the woman steps forward, and she's wearing these kind of like long flowing robes. And when she moves forward, she moves into a shaft of light, and she watches the two soldiers now as they kind of like spin around frightened. She steps down the stairs, and you can't quite see her face at this point. But she steps up to the soldiers, and she puts out her hands to ease or calm one of them, kind of like the way a mother might stroke her child that's frightened. And the two soldiers, these ghosts that maybe that's what they are, these spirits, fall to their knees. And then she looks into the corners, and several others, the ones that you now recognize, Z and Murphy, as being the bodies that you inhabited, or the spirits that you inhabited, they step out of the shadows as if they had been there the whole time in darkness, and they hobble forward, and they're now in tears, and you can see the scarred visage of their faces, those having been gassed overseas. And she speaks to them in gentle tones that you don't quite recognize, but you, Dietrich, get a word here and there. And she looks to you, Vesper. The Exi? You have them?
I do. There are two with me now.
Let us help them then. Please, let them out.
I do so. I kneel down and kind of obscure how I'm doing this necessarily and draw both of them out of their place.
The two of them kind of climb out in that same way that they had done before. And as this is happening, the woman looks to the chitinous man, and she nods to him. And he looks to someone in turn, and that person to someone, and then someone disappears through an exit somewhere. Mm. And the two Exi begin to crawl over towards the four spirits. And when they see these four spirits, they lick their lips. And you can kind of see that they're quite, well, they look hungry now. And they move forward, and the four spirits look like they want to retreat, but she's whispering something to them. And they try to move, but they suddenly look frozen. And the Exi move forward, and then they lean over and they grab. And now you can kind of see that the Exi can hold on to these spirits as if they were corporeal, as if they had real bodies, and they take a bite. And the first soldier winces and starts to shout, and then slowly the Exy begins to eat one soldier, and the other Exy begins to eat the other soldier. And the two soldiers that are remaining look frightened. And as this is happening, two more Exy come galloping into the room and just jump on top of the two remaining soldiers. So now there are 4 Exy, 1 on each soldier, and they're just devouring them. And they look like they're trying to scream or to shout. And they eat up every last bite of these strange spiritual representations of... And then, as soon as this happens, they each wander off into the darkness, and they look almost drunk as they do so. One of them kind of collapses onto the ground. Another one collapses next to it, and they kind of spoon each other. And then another one climbs up into the stands, and then another one just walks off onto the dais. And then from out of the darkness come these other members of the Fierce Brood, and they take them, the 4 Exy, away. And you're free to say something, unless you just want...
That was disturbing.
Yeah.
I'm just rigid and speechless.
Yeah, I'm a little stunned.
She recognizes the looks on your faces, and if you had mumbled that was frightening or disturbing, she just chuckles. It is as things should be. There's much you don't know. There are many other worlds than these, and there are many other cycles than the simple cycle that you live. There's nothing to be upset about. It is what you would call part of nature. Please, let's go talk to Jim. I'm sure we can clear things up. And with that, I think that we are going to end tonight's adventure. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. We will be back next week for another episode. I believe it's episode 16 of the Fierce Brood. And believe it or not, we are winding down. Just so people know, the end of the season is coming up. So thank you all if you've been watching this far. Thank you, of course, to my players. We will see you all next week.